to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Seraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into your own narrative for real, beloveds, because the narratives are getting crazy out there and we're literally in a battle of narratives. And it's so important because recently the divided states called for greater African support of Ukraine after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and it was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Molly Fee, who said, the United States believes strongly that African voices matter in the international community and that your voices matter in the global conversation. It's not about your troops matter. It's not about give us your vote in the United Nations. It's not about, support us. It's about add your voice. Beloveds, I hope this shows the importance of the narrative, which was what I've been talking about. I even did a spiritual show where I talked about how the way we win this thing against Babylon is by developing and overlaying a new narrative for us, for our people, for our reality. It's that simple and yet that complicated because so many people are out of their minds. So, that African voices matter in the international community. And then she went on to say, we believe that it is critical at this moment in time that the entire international community demonstrates unity and speaks with one voice against the aggression and in support of principles, timeless principles, sovereignty, territorial integrity, peaceful resolutions, etc., etc. And the funny thing is, so this Assistant Secretary Fee, she was actually meeting with African journalists, and the African journalists were basically saying, this is not our war. So we don't know why we have to add our voices to it. I think there was some kind of webinar, these things are paid, where they try and push their policy, push their agenda. But our people are getting much wiser. And a lot of people were like, it's not really our war. It's not really our war. And that was kind of the message. And you can see that there is this push. And there has been this push since it started to kind of get Africa to condemn Russia, which can't happen. And by the way, even Ramaphosa, just before the whole Russian invasion of Ukraine, Ramaphosa, or just immediately after it happened, he actually called out Biden and was like, if Biden had actually met with Putin, then this would never have ever happened. And Biden's team actually had to come out and respond and give all kinds of excuses where they were like, we left no stone unturned. We did everything diplomatically possible. The power of our voice, family. And they tried to make Ramaphosa look bad. The power of our voice. And the thing is, this situation is a bit more complicated when you look at it from a geopolitical level. But what we're seeing is that Africa has been put in a tight spot between a rock and a hard place. They're trying to take us back to the Cold War days. And if you don't know, just do a bit of research of how a lot of dictators in that time played the CIA against the USSR in Africa, which was like their proxy war. And you see, the position of Africa right now is that several African countries have professed neutrality in Russia's war on Ukraine, avoiding taking sides for fear of upsetting allies. What many people don't know, and this was actually said by a political scientist at Uganda's Kyambogo University, Sultan Cuba. He said, many countries on the African continent source their military equipment from Russia and may not want to condemn the invasion of Ukraine, while the majority of these countries also belong to the non-alignment movement. Now, I actually didn't know this, but the non-alignment movement, it has 120 countries right now. This is awesome. And it was formed by 29 countries in 1961 when the world began to polarize between USSR and the divided states. And the countries committed to keeping their foreign policies non-aligned and not participating in either military or political blocs. They also stressed the need for peace coexistence based on the principles of independence. So a lot of African nations belong to this alliance, which will just be their like get for the politicians, it will be like their get out of jail free card. Like, ooh, sorry, we're part of the non-alignment movement, but it doesn't really seem to favor Africa to back the divided states that like the divided states would have expected in the past. And ironically, this assistant African affairs minister, whatever she is, Fee, she even talked about how, and Ukraine, because of course the African journalists asked her about the discrimination and racism that they had seen of Africans in Ukraine, and they were like, but they've set up a hotline, they've done this, they've done that, which means even maybe the Americans helped the Ukraine because maybe they were expecting Africa to just, But this is not our war. And that seems to be the message coming out of Africa. And, several dozen African countries, including South Africa, actually abstained in a recent vote condemning Russia's war on Ukraine. 6 did not participate. They were absent. And, eventually, though, it may cause Africa to split into two blocks, those who are supporting Russia and those who are supporting the divided states. And you guys always say the war of Armageddon will be on the African continent, blah, blah, blah. This just may be the way they bring us into this nonsense. But for now, Africa has said this is not our war. And they've taken the position of silence. These are interesting times, beloveds. It looks like the only thing that the African countries really came out and spoke strongly against was the discrimination of our African brothers and sisters in Ukraine. Let's hope that that's where this whole thing remains and that it's not taken, and that we don't get sucked into it. But you see, I think the reason I even shared this article is because you see how it's all about narratives and our voice? And I'm telling you now, beloveds, our collective voice as an African people supersedes the collective voice of our African leaders. I think even the African Union was like, there's a European Union, African Union, we can't really say anything because it would not be taken well by the European Union who have this under control. So we're just going to step back. Whether it's out of cowardice, whether it's whatever the situation. And you see, the interesting thing about, at least our dictator here, Moi, when he was president, during the times of, the Cold War, when there was like a Cold War between the divided states and USSR, former Russia, played the US against the USSR. They played the Soviet Union and the divided states against each other. So they would take this deal from this one and then they'd take that deal from that one. And because they weren't seeing on eye to eye and they wanted the attention and the support of Africa, a lot of African countries were able to somehow benefit in a crazy way. And so I hope that the handlers of our presidents are students of history, and they will look into some of the strategic moves and strategic games, strategic chess, because those dictators then were playing chess, beloveds. The strategic chess moves that the governments of that time made that kind of kept them without having to commit to either or and help them to benefit from both. Because this is Babylon's war against itself. It really has nothing to do with us. And as even a Mzungu professor said, beloved, this is the great opportunity for the global melanated people to get their house in order and bring the whole white supremacy system down. Tuko pamoja.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.